21.
Next one is 21, Heritage Incentive Grant Approval for Tiptree. It's just, we've already passed the minutes, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey?
This is the one with the additional wording, and we'll strike that out.
This is the one with the additional wording under 3 and struck out
Okay,
under 4.
so there's been some changes to this one. I noticed that the review of, excuse me, funding didn't have a report back date, and I think that can be somewhat limiting in terms of what we're trying to achieve. So that now reads by September 2017 in order to inform development of the long-term plan, and there didn't seem to be an appetite to limit the delegation to a value of $100,000, making the point that, you know, community boards have substantially higher delegations, and I don't think any of us can recall a time where we declined a recommendation from the committee. So I think there's a degree of comfort around the delegation. Sorry?
Can I just clarify then, do you mean that it remain as what's here at 100,000, or are we talking about?
I think it's just full delegation as well.
It's just a full delegation.
I'm just wondering, in fact, though, if a figure, say, like 150,000, so that if there were really large applications which might be more contentious, that in fact they do come back to full council. That's my only thought.
Yeah, the only thing that you mentioned, I don't disagree with you, just saying that I can't remember a time we've declined them. I can't either, but most of the time, I think more times than not, we sometimes do add bits and pieces, or we'll amend it at council. And that's just my only concern is that, you know, the last one I can remember us doing was even saying, could we put in something around there about trimming the trees back so we could see it, or could there be a plant there to tell that story? So I don't think that we've got this quite right. I agree, we'd spoken earlier around doing this review. I note that it's there in item 3, but I think Yanni it was that raised a point about perhaps incorporating that with the strategy. I think we do need to have a wider look at it, because there are a lot of reoccurring themes that continue to come up, and that's a bit silly really if they continue to come up, so we might as well put them in as policy. But I'm just reluctant to give full delegation there until we've got it right, because I don't think we have got it right yet. And that's not a lack of confidence in the committee, it's just though that we tend to add things to it.
We would revisit that after we've received the review.
I suppose so.
We could revisit the delegation. Sarah?
Yeah.
Just a couple of responses. I think that the last time we changed things was before the committee was seeing these first, and so it was coming straight to council without a committee recommendation, when we were talking about the trimming the trees and putting a plaque and stuff, and I think the committee would probably do that. The other thing when I mentioned this first earlier was that it wasn't for all heritage grants, it was for the heritage incentive grants, because actually there are some heritage grants that we do that are much broader with larger amounts of money. The landmark ones, for example. So it's actually for number 4.
It's to approve
heritage incentive grants. That's the specific fund that we are dealing with today for these 3 applications, and that's the one that has the set limit every year of sort of $700,000. And I'm really comfortable with that. Community boards and others have, you know, delegations over, you know, pots of money that are above the 100,000, and we need to trust our colleagues to just get on with that.
I mean, the interesting thing for me was that the particular heritage incentive grant that we're being asked to approve today wouldn't meet the delegation that was proposed by the committee.
Yeah.
You know, we'd still have to, because it's 117,400.
And I'd be very happy for the committee to do that. So, yeah.
Yanni?
Yeah, I thought last term it was raised to 150,000, and I personally am comfortable with that. I do think that there could be quite contentious ones that do come, and also that just given the quantum of the fund, that anything over that 150 actually should be a full council decision, because it would significantly erode the money that could be remaining in it. So, and also because it's actually sometimes good for the full council to be aware of those significant buildings. So my recommendation would be that we change it to 150,000, I think that's in line with the advice that we had last time.
I think there needs to be a figure. The delegations exist for a reason. Staff have got them. Everyone has them. I just think no delegation or carte blanche probably isn't the way I'd like to go. I'd support raising it, but I think there needs to be something there.
We've set a budget.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Actually, I support no upper limit. Obviously, as a council, we've set a total envelope for how much can be spent on these grants, and we've just recently delegated decision making to the ITE committee about cycleways, which is a lot bigger than what we're talking about here.
And various community boards, the Linwood Central Heathcote, 1.6 million for the Woolston facility, those kind of things, and we're happy for them to be working on that within that budget. When we're not getting, oversight of every decision that's being made, so.
We have to change that.
Yeah, so everything increased.
Oh, I see, yeah. Your last terms was 100,000.
Yes, I'm just wondering in terms of discussion, in fact, if we should decide on the limit at the time of the review comes through, which should be, well, I guess that's still September, but maybe that this aspect goes back to the committee, so the committee are comfortable with the limit that we're deciding. There's quite a few different views around the table as to whether we have no upper limit or whether we say have it at 150,000, which the last one is my own view at the moment.
All right, so let me see how we handle this. So let's do 1, 2 and 3 together.
I've got a question on that one.
Yep.
Have we got any staff that can answer it though?
Yep, the staff are here.
Where's Brendan? Oh, yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah. Brendan, my only question is just around the first one there. I just find that just with the cost with prelim and general and contingency, what actually is that? And the only reason I ask that is because contingency, I'm presuming, is 10%. But when you've got a figure which is the highest figure there, just as general and prelim and general, I'd want a bit more explanation than just general or preliminary for the biggest chunk of that money in there. What is that?
Preliminary and general is just the establishment of the site, scaffolding, all the items that a contractor needs to have available on the site office, everything that you can't necessarily quantify, but they have to include in their price.
Okay.
The other contingency sums are to cover. And on heritage buildings, you will find this virtually every time, that when you get into the work, you'll find more work than you needed than you thought was going to actually need to be dealt with.
Good segue into the second question. And normally we'll do a contingency of 10%. Is that higher, and do you see that often higher in heritage instances like this? And is this 10% or is it greater?
It's normally a standard construction figure, so 10% is about what you would expect.
Yep.
The other thing to remember anyway is those costs, when they're put in, they are provisional sums, so the grant is actually paid out on the actual sums, the receipts that are paid. So it's better to have a slightly higher amount to make sure you've got enough cover, because more than likely you'll find more work than you anticipated. So the provisional and general sums and contingency sums cover those variable work costs that are almost certain going to happen on a heritage building, because it's not as clean and clinical as a new build, where you know pretty much exactly what you're going to have to pay.
And do we normally put contingency in general? And I just found that a bit. I don't recall that. Just all bunk,
What we find is that different applicants and different contractors have different ways of pricing things. So some of them make the P&G as a separate item. Some of them just put it into the rest of their figures. So what I find is best is rather than staff trying to make up and anticipate what exactly is in those figures, it's better to just put them as they come in. But as I say, the key thing is that it's paid, the amount of grant that's paid is on the receipts of the work. So it's the actual cost of the work. These provisional sums may actually leave something in the pot, which is returned to the fund.
And I was just surprised that there's actually nothing about the roof. Looking at the photo, probably the rattiest part of it is actually the roof, and it doesn't have any work actually been done to the roof.
Well, it may look pretty ratty, but that might be part of the character.
I'm sure it might hold out. Is that part of the charm?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it's odd. Sometimes the most sort of scruffy looking parts of the building.
There's a lot of rust on it, but anyway.
It's taken quite a while to get that rust.
Okay, so we're all good with items 1 to 3. So would someone like to move items 1 to 3? Sarah, Glenn, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Now,